in this webinar series, we use the tempo framework that you see here on the slide, which is kind of the roadmap for the entire series, but I think it also really helps to illustrate our take on negotiations at a high level.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, we think of negotiations as happening in the quote unquote plan to close stage, and that's true, right?
Yep.
We think about a negotiation, we often think about the back and forth from when we delivered our proposal to when we actually close it, haggling about price and getting perfectly worded terms and conditions. At its core, negotiation is about agreeing on an exchange of value for the solution that we're delivering, and for commensurate price and conditions back from our customers. If you click forward there, John, that's late stage negotiations, right? In the late stage negotiations goal, we refer to this as protecting the pie, carving out our value, making sure, again, our solution is sold for commensurate price and conditions. There's an equal value exchange there. Now that implies that we've done some work up until that point, that we're actually trying to protect. So if you click to the next slide, you kind of see the other half of the equation from our perspective at Challenger, and that's the real difference between successful negotiations and ultimately leaving more on the table or losing value. When you get to those late stage negotiations is really all about the work that you've been doing up front all along. It's what you've been doing as you seek out those targets, as you engage prospects and try to reframe their perspective, as you manage that buying group to the point of proposal. We call this sizing the pie. Okay. So if late stage negotiations is protecting the pie, our take on everything happens before then, our early stage strategy, it's called sizing the pie. And at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about today. That's what we help advise on. And if you look closely at this page, you realize we've been setting ourselves up for success or lack thereof this entire time as we followed our tempo framework throughout this webinar series. So this kind of puts a cap on, I think, a lot of the work we've been doing and talking to you all about for several months now.
Yeah, I love this framework, Mike. And if I put myself in the shoes of some of our audience, they might say, come on, guys, like this is negotiations, this is cost of doing business, this is what we got to do. I think what we as Challenger are often interested in is, first of all, the doing something because it's the way it's always been done is not a good enough answer, but also quantifying what that status quo costs. And if we do that and take a step back for not only was it cost an average seller, but what does it cost the broader organization? If we do some simple back of the envelope math, a la Challenger pain calculator, and assume as a rep, you got $1 million annual goal and your average sales price is something like $100,000. That means it takes 10 deals to get your number. If you assume on average, you're given a 15% discount, that's $150,000 in value lost every year that we theoretically, leave on the table, which we could say is a cost of doing business. When you expand that number, you look at it two ways. What's it costing the company? If you got 50 salespeople on your team or in your organization, that's $7.5 million in profitability that you're taking a hit on, which prevents you from reinvesting in the company, reinvesting in you, reinvesting in your peers. I think what makes this even more painful for sales reps is think about the impact on your incentive plan. For many of us that are incentivized accordingly, there's a big difference between being at 115% versus 100% of goal and simultaneously being at 100% versus 85% of goal. Typically, that's going to affect our multiplier. So obviously, the dollars and cents, this hits the wallet for the company and for individual sellers, so it may be costing us more than we realize. I think we would encourage sellers, if you got a pen and paper right now, do the math for yourself. Right? What's your average discount? What's your average sales price? What's your goal? How do you compare some of the facts and figures we shared here?